Yeah, we already know that 2 darts to this thing won't tranquilize it from the opening scene where 2 darts don't stop a smaller shark.
Yes.
And he gets shot with 1. Maybe he's up the dose. We can't say for sure, but he gets shot with 1 trank here, and he's apparently out, but is bigger. So, no. The shark is awake, is conscious, knows what's going on, wants to be on the platform, is enacting stage 2 of its plan. Stage 1 being the recon that we saw.
Okay, I see. Although I didn't watch the next chapter, I'm assuming that the shark does bad things once it gets up and... Okay, all right.
It pretends to be knocked out. It pretends to be knocked out and then just bites Jim Whitlock's arm off.
Yes, blood starts appearing soon in the film.
Okay, all right.
I know that you're a horror guy, and we got you in just before all of the bloodshed happens.
Well, those scenes probably all got picked by other people. I was just like, give me whatever scene, and I'm surprised that I didn't get like the birthday party scene. And I'm like, my God, what are these poor people going to talk about during this?
That was our longest one yet.
Yep.
Really?
We find things, Sean. We find things.
I ask weird questions.
You've got some iconic moments, actually, in this scene.
You do.
A couple of iconic lines, at least. You've got Scoggins saying, did someone order the fish?
Oh, God.
We don't want to talk about eye-rolling jokes or things I would definitely say in real life.
I would have high-fived him right then and there when he said that next to me.
And then you have Russell, Sam Jackson's reaction to the, like, what in God's creation? And Jim's response of, not his, ours. And that's a line. That's a phenomenal line.
No, you said
everything you need to know about Dr.
Did they swim backwards?
Yeah, you have that. You have the recognizing the guns. You have Sam Jackson's legendary wow as he sees the lab that they're in. You know, there's a lot.
He said that. So on the DVD commentary, Jay, you gave it. So you want to discuss the legendary wow that Samuel L. Jackson let loose?
In the commentary that Sam Jackson does for DBC, he goes on for about a minute and a half on this wow that is his own single word, 3 letters that he said about how it's one of the all-time great wows in cinema. And it's definitely up there. I mean, if somebody stopped me on the street with a gun to my head and said, who gives you the best wow in cinema, then I'd have to say Samuel L. Jackson, Russell Franklin, and DBC.
Okay, that wouldn't change their life, but that would get them going in the right spot. So they'd probably have a few more rough months and then find their way after thinking about it. And then they would drive in a Jaguar.
Because they'd have to think like, well, hang on, surely it's got to be an Owen Wilson. Like, if we're talking about wows, it's got to be the king of saying wow. He's got to be up there. But then it's Sam Jackson? He doesn't say wow, he swears. It sends him on a spiral.
Oh, it's a beautiful wow. And there's also one thing I never noticed in this. And so in this movie, we know that Jim Whitlock, played by Stellan Skarsgård. I always want to say Stellar Skateboard because of how did this get made. And Dr. Susan McAllister, Saffron Burrows, she looks at him and goes, how long have they been synchronized? He's like, I don't know. And then they start knocking out the cameras, and everyone kind of gets crazy, and you see they both know that they made these things way too smart. But there's this great line where Jim just goes, all right, try to stay focused, people. But he's looking freaked out. He knows he doesn't want them asking questions about, they're swimming backwards and they're taking out cameras. Try to stay focused. Like, he's avoiding that they broke the Harvard genetic compact right there, but he's telling people to stay focused. But on his face, he's like, oh my gosh, this is, oh man, this is, I didn't see this coming.
Done.
Yeah, exactly. That's the look on his face, though, and it's perfect. But I love it. Try to stay focused. Because he knows that people, I love the look on their faces, like, well, we might have done too good of a job here with these sharks. But yeah, if you watch it again, just watch that little scene. Great computer acting, by the way. Whew, man, I wonder what that computer felt like being on stage with Stellan Skarsgård during this scene.
Yes, we'll never know.
I have a question.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so when Carter goes and swims in that little cage, the little, I don't know what you call that.
The tunnel, the cage.
The tunnel of cages underwater.
The tunnel of cages.
Yes.
Episode title.
Yeah, it is.
So the sharks attack him, and is it unusual for the sharks to attack? I know it's unusual for them to attack in synchronicity. Is that a word?
It is now.
It's now. A police album, isn't it?
I don't know. That's music. I don't know. But if that, I would think that they would normally try to attack him no matter what. So that tunnel of cages should be so bashed up. It should be like every other step there's a dent in it because those sharks would attack him every time he goes down there.
Wow.
Well, they established that all the below surface water fences are made out of titanium, so it gives. It's like a net.
Oh, so maybe that's why they did that scene, to establish how strong it is, and it has to go. It could jump over it, but it has to get to the other fence areas. They wanted to show how strong that fencing was. Does that make sense? So that's why they made that scene?
I think so, yeah.
And also, those two sharks shouldn't have done that, because they gave away. They played their cards too early. They saw that they could swim backwards. There's no reason to go after Carter during that scene. So that's why these two sharks end up getting blown up. They lose fights. They're definitely more impulsive and not as smart as Gen 1 or the Gen 2. Yeah, they're very, Steve McQueen, we've named one of them, and I don't know if we have a name for the other. But they're impulsive. So I bet you Gen 2 was just like, oh gosh, these guys. And then, come over here and help me get up on this platform. But yeah, I don't know. They established how strong the fence was. That's smart. But did you think that was an impulsive move by the sharks? Was that part of the plan?
It doesn't make any sense, because you're like, okay, they do that. They don't want the humans to think they're smart. But I'm like, okay, maybe they didn't think they were being watched. But they take out the cameras. They know what cameras are. Where did these sharks go to camera school? How do they know that those little things are cameras? That's not. I could see them working together in synchronicity like that, because animals do that. Fish swim in schools. Yeah. How did they know about cameras? Where did these sharks go to film school?
So they watch.
They watch, yes.
They look in portholes.
Yeah, a couple of scenes ago, they were watching Susan McAllister, where she stores her data. So in a locker, they were watching her through a porthole. And where she keeps the key.
And they go for it later because they saw her do that.
Wait, are you serious?
Yes,
I didn't watch.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The camera makes a point of her looking into a porthole and fish swimming away.
Yeah,
as if she's caught someone doing something. This is entirely true. And a shark, the same thing when Preacher looks out the porthole and like feeding time. We kind of think, oh, sharks can look in there and see how to operate the oven, which they put him in later and turn on. So yes, we have to believe that the sharks are learning things from these humans as to how they can possibly kill them later.
Oscar Isaac in that movie, X-Men Apocalypse. The scene with Oscar Isaac watching TV. The scene with learning, and he learns everything. So the sharks look through the portholes and watch the TVs when they're on. They know what's up. They've been up in the labs before being tested. They probably at night they're driving the boats around. So they know what these cameras are. They've been able to deduce what they have just by watching. They're like Antonio Banderas from the 13th Warrior, where he just listens to all the Vikings speak and he learns their language because I listened, and because they watched. That's what this is.
Did you just bring up a movie that I haven't even thought of in 20 years?
I love it.
That's all Mark does.
That's how I make my money, man. I love 13th Warrior. It's on Movie Films and Flicks podcast. It's one of our more popular episodes, by the way. Great behind-the-scenes stories, I got to tell you. But yeah, so they watch, they listen, they know what these cameras are. They're taking them out. They don't want people knowing where they're at.
And I did some research. You can train sharks to not necessarily recognize things, as that's not proven, but they can be trained to do simple tricks or to follow a path.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not out of the question that if they were to be made more intelligent, that they would have the ability to learn other things. So I saw this article that somebody had of how they train sharks to swim over a certain patch of coral. And they beckoned a shark to them, a white-tip reef shark to them, and when it swam over the pink coral, they give it some food. And when it swam any other way, they hit it on the head. Which that's some goal, to hit a shark on the head.
Try that with my cats.
45 minutes, every time the shark was just swimming across the pink coral, and they went away, came back, and the shark had taught other sharks to swim across the pink coral. So this is not out of the ordinary. This could happen.
And let's also, they're using mako sharks in this, and makos have the largest brain to body ratio of all sharks. So that they're one of the most intelligent shark breeds. They're warm blooded. They're very different. They don't do well in captivity. They need the open water. So these things are quite intelligent already, and now they're being modified. So they're basically the really smart gremlin from Gremlins 2.
Brain gremlin, yes.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
But one thing that they cannot do is swim backwards. And there is no amount of making a shark smarter that you can do to make it be able to swim backwards, just because of how they're built. It's like training a human to bend their knees the wrong way. It just won't happen. You can't train that. You have to break them. So again, I did some research. Can sharks swim backwards? And the answer this is what I found. The answer is no, although there are a few species, including the epaulet shark found in tropical Australian waters, that can walk backwards. And that is the end of the article. It just stops that can walk backwards. And so I just that was not enough. I had to what is this walking shark? And the epaulet shark is just a small shark that when it ends up being on land, it can kind of use its fins to kind of walk in. It's like stepping.
Develop a kelp.
It's crawling. It's more than anything else.
A kelp breathing apparatus.
You know.
Exactly. It's not an intimidating move that it has. It's not an intimidating shark. It's quite small. So it just kind of crawls until it just about gets into water and then it's off.
They really modified these things. I don't know what they did to these sharks, but Jim and Susan are on as something.
They did some plastic surgery along the body. Who knows what they've nipped and tucked all over the place.
I bet you they did. Why not?
Tighten up those frown lines.
They've been there for 4 years. They've been working on them. Weird stuff.
Yeah.
Carter doesn't ask questions.
I wanted to ask another question that I don't understand. So this is they have to get this experimental drug by the end of the weekend, right? By Monday.
Yes.
All right. So why did they let everybody else on the crew go home?
Oh,
I mean,
can I answer this?
I think that would be important. Go ahead.
They were supposed to come back in a deleted scene, but since the storm came in, another crew couldn't come in. So that squall prevented more crew. And so in this deleted scene, it's the night after the party. You have Jim and Janice are kind of hungover. Jim's talking about being dehydrated and he needs water because he's dehydrated and he's hungover. You have LL Cool J.
Hang on. I love his description of dying of thirst being like the hangover that finally kills you.
Yeah, I love that.
So damn Swedish. I love it. He's just so dramatic with everything.
And then you learn that they're going to get married, and she actually thinks she's pregnant too, which is insane. I'm glad they cut that out of this.
Okay,
yes,
this okay. I actually just watched this scene before the podcast because that was the deleted scene we were going to talk about.
Yeah, and so they said that they couldn't come back from the storm. And there's a great back of the head slap from Preacher to Scoggins. I'm really impressed with that with the cake.
The callback to the cake in the previous deleted scene, Sean Scoggins kept on going about how terrible Preacher's cake was. He wouldn't try the cake because no one went back to the cake, and so that's why he served a piece of cake for breakfast.
Okay. But I have another question then. More questions. So most of the crew leaves on Friday. They were supposed to come back.
Some of them. They're down to a skeleton crew for the night, and then some come back for this. So this would be Saturday, I assume.
Where do they go? Is there like a little island?
They're off the coast of California, so they went home to wherever they live. So you can fly there in a short amount of time, and it's like shore leave. They've been there for however many months without going home, and now they get to go home. I'm
impressed that every doubt I have about this film, you guys have just sort of explained away, and I'm like, oh, they're right.
We're making it all up.
Yeah.
It's as if you've seen this movie multiple times.
This is the 8th week in a row we've spent an hour talking about just a few minutes.
This one's too. There's so much in this, though. I mean, I had to stretch last week's out by talking about a shark doing kelp breathing apparatuses and the shark going up into the radar lounge and dancing and like calling up, perfecting Brenda's voice to call out McAllister. I really stretched it. So this one. Man, I'm telling you, this is stressful. I have so many notes. I love that when they bring the shark up, there's the production designer built little water things that shoot on the shark. Like the production design's so good. And the tile is meant to look old because it's a World War II sub filling station. So it looks modern and old at the same time.
If we're talking about bringing the shark up, I love, almost at 5 minutes into the scene, there's a little monitor which shows a little animation of a shark rising up on a platform.
Yes, I have the animated shark. You're like, what?
I don't know who that's for. There is nobody out there operating that screen. And if you can see the screen, you can see the shark. So
that stage they shot on was 200 feet long, 100 feet wide, and that tank is 40 foot deep. And so they would just dunk the set into the water. They didn't fill it up. They would just drop the set into water to make it look flooded. And, I mean, it's just such excellent production design from this movie. And just learning all that in this scene, in this set. Man, I hate it when people say this is a guilty pleasure because it's so good. I love that set. Like, I don't know. And, like, they get a bunch of crane shots in there. Rennie Harlin's talking about how they built it. I love what Rennie Harlan's saying in his accent. He's talking about, yeah, you don't want to electrocute your crew because that'll slow down the shoot.